Welcome to the Attack Action Podcast,
where we talk about friendship, fun times, and most importantly, flesh and blood. Here are your hosts, Taylor and Isaac.
Hello, Attactioneers. Welcome to the podcast. This is Taylor, your host. I'm here with my fellow host, Isaac. What's up, dude?
How's it going, Taylor?
Oh, it's going great. It is summer vacation. I'm currently recording this podcast in my bathrobe. I'm freaking chilling. It's great.
Nice. It's actually been like a rainy July, which has been really weird, but all good. It's summertime.
It is, even though I wake up every morning, let the dog out, and it's just sprinkling rain on my head. It's fine. It makes it easy to do indoor activities like play flesh and blood.
Nice. Speaking of, we decided to, so this is going to be kind of an update to Uprising draft strategy from what we've learned so far. We haven't played a lot of limited games, but we've learned quite a bit about the matchups and heroes and which cards are actually good and not. And, thought we'd share that all with everybody. Of course, our ideas will develop, but just the timing right now is really pertinent because of limited Road to Nats. So I figured maybe not perfect, but we just get it out there to, whatever you take away from it and can improve your game with is, better than nothing. So that's what we're doing.
That is exactly what we're doing. I would say probably like we have played quite a bit of draft and limited, but maybe compared to enough to what our like standard would be at this time, we would have liked to have had like probably an extra week. But I would guess that we have played way more than your average person. So
yeah, most likely. Yep.
So not to sell ourselves short in our knowledgeable expertise is all I'm getting at, is you should listen to what we have to say or not. It's your choice.
That's why they're here.
Okay, so let's start off with some news, I think, before we move into everything else.
James White appeared on Lie Do Fidi podcast, reaching out to the European audience out there and had some pretty titillating spoilers.
Mm-hmm. So the new set, which was spoiled, the name of it was spoiled on the Instant Speed podcast. Shout out to both of these channels. Great content. That Dynasty is the name of the next expandable set coming in November, and that the Emperor of Valkor will be prominently displayed, utilized. It'll be a big part of the set, the Emperor, and that they are an important figure, and we'll be getting a new class in the next expandable set, which is just wild to me.
Yep. And there's a lot going on with this expandable set, like a bit more than maybe Crew or something. Although there was a lot going on with Everfest. We had a bomb drop by the name of Starvo. So
that's so true.
Also, the Emperor will be revealed at the Pro Tour in Lille. So, look out for that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that means the like key artwork for it or the actual card.
Right.
So that remains to be seen, but it's very exciting. My thoughts about this new expandable set are that I think we're going to get a talented set with maybe talent class cards as well. Potentially. I'm not sure how they're going to do that, but but then maybe it leaves out like somebody like mechanologist who hasn't gotten a new hero yet. So I don't know. It just seems like they can't keep expanding class card pools and not help out the talents, because then that's like feels very limiting for design. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it'll be a bit of everything, because it would be great to get, like, especially with the banning of ball lightning, like a few more lightning cards or a few more shadow cards for Levia or things like that. But then, like you said, it does leave out, Chain's Living Legend now. So shadows only for Levia. Mechanologist wouldn't get anything unless that's also somehow a specialization, which that's a weird thing that they clarified is weird, but didn't tell us exactly what they meant. But they said it's on purpose.
Yeah, that it will make sense at some point.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts. Any thoughts, Isaac, about the new class?
I don't know. So the woman on Findel's Fighting Spirit is seemingly the same woman on Adrenaline Rush and Poison the Tips, which maybe this is a bit of a stretch here, but it really seems like the same woman who is going to be like my favorite class, maybe. She's just like, a tribal warrior, assassin, berserker, druid. I don't know, but I'm really into the flavor. And, so I don't know. I'll just pick that.
Sweet. That sounds great. I mean, this is, I put this on Twitter. Shout out to Melody Likes, who asked this question. Also, shout out to the Pitch Perfect podcast. Great. Having a fun time listening to that. Keep it up, everybody over there. What I want is that for there to be a necromancer, like boom, hard pivot off of Ice Wizard onto necromancer. Now I'm a necromancer. That's the life I live. That's exactly what will happen. But I don't think that will happen. But what I do think is that maybe we'll get an alchemist. So we had all of these new potions in Everfest, laying down the foundation for an alchemist to come out, right? And maybe with like, what is it? Life of the Party maybe talks about how that deck could interact, right? If a potion is out and you play this, do this or something, So I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. There's a number of cards that deal with items like that, like knick-knack,
Right.
There's also a number of cards that deal with like money. I don't know if an alchemist would also have money, but there's just like a lot of design space using these items, or having a little bit of a bonus for having or using items, would be very cool.
Totally. So those are my thoughts / our thoughts. Nice. What else do we have for news?
So the ELO update is coming. They promised that it is coming this week. They've just been, they had a bit of a, mistake one time when they updated ELO, which the computer did it wrong or out of order or whatever. So they just clarified that they are making sure that it is perfectly calculated when updated, which is why there's been a bit of a delay. But once it is implemented, the update should come, after every match in a tournament. It's just like a system that they're building, I guess, and want to get it right.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, ELO should be calculated after every round rather than at the end, because the amount of ELO you gain with a win or lose with a loss depends on your opponent's current ELO level. So if it calculates it all at the end of a tournament, then that's a bit more fiddly than every round. So much less accurate.
Yeah, so I mean, it could calculate it chronologically after the fact, right? Like, you lost round 2, so then your new elo was this, so then that meant round 3 would be that, you know what I mean? Like the computer could still do that, but yeah.
Right.
Anyway, do you want to tell us about our Fab Foundry endeavor?
Yeah, totally. So, friend of the pod, Travis, aka On It, our longtime affiliate over at Fab Foundry, also Discs and Dice in Troutdale. So many names and so many acumen. I don't know if that's the right word. Anyway, so they are now sponsoring our segment of Pick, Pass, Pray. So how this is going to work is you're either going to listen to the whole episode or just fast forward down to the Pick, Pass, Pray part. We're going to talk about our picks, our passes, and our prays. And if you don't know how that segment works, just fast forward down there to the end and you will be able to find it and know how it works. So then what On It is going to do is he's going to tweet out the 3 cards in a picture from their Twitter. And you, the listener, will benefit by getting some sweet goodies if you like and comment what your pick, pass, and pray will be. So then you'll be entered into a random drawing, and the winner for this episode is going to get 1 each of the new Uprising Blitz decks and 6 packs sent to them. So again, we'll be doing pick, pass, pray. Go over to On It's Twitter, which we will link in the show notes, and you're going to like and comment on that, and then he'll pick a winner.
And we'll retweet it also and all that. But this is a killer prize.
Totally. 6 packs.
Everybody go do it. Yeah, totally. And all the Blitz decks. I don't have those yet.
Nice. Yeah. So really appreciate the sponsorship. I think this is really cool. So make sure you check out all of that stuff after this episode. Yeah.
All right.
I thought I was going to have a witty ending to that, but my brain just kind of like,
shout outs. All right, you got 2 of these, so why don't you go first and sandwich mine?
Okay. Sandwich. Okay, so my first shout out is to our boy over at Ethnic Smoke. Great YouTube channel. I can't remember homie's first name. We met him in Portland in March for a Road to Nationals. Isaac, I think you beat him on camera, maybe. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah.
Just to flex
very
a little
nice
bit.
Guy.
Yeah. He has a great YouTube channel where he does commentary over his TTS games and like walks you through the lines and stuff. And so it's been really helpful for me because I am also on the Iyslander journey right now. And so it's good to just see somebody else's thoughts and lines of play. And I've learned quite a bit from him. And they're just like pretty good videos. I also appreciate that he wins every game. So I think that's cool. Like if you're going to put stuff out there, you might as well put the ones you win. Like, love it.
That's funny. I feel like I always lose in our productions. Okay, yeah, very nice guy. In his defense, he sideboarded wrong against me in that match, and I kind of steamrolled him. But maybe he'll get me next time. I'll be back in Portland. So in that
I think he lives in Seattle, so you really got to go for it.
Oh, gotcha. In that same vein, I was just going to shout out a local podcast we have, OKNY podcast, who do a number of things, but really just pump out the TTS gameplay videos online. And despite all of the content for Flesh and Blood out there, there's like not really that much like gameplay, especially with audio or whatever. So anyway, I just appreciate that they're just testing or playing games on TTS and just make the effort to just record them and upload them. So it's great. Really, really adds to the community out there. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is particularly about their videos that is appealing. Maybe it's just like Oliver's kind of, I don't know, funny his little humors and his little isms and stuff. Like every time he makes like an ashwing, he says, make 2 friends, and then when they die, like, oh, my friends, or, stuff like that. Or, I don't know. It is like oddly low tech, but super appealing at the same time, maybe because it's so honest. And, Yichin and Oliver are freaking awesome. They're great dudes, pillars of the community for sure. Super fun to hang out with. So there's that.
All right. On to the third.
Yeah. My final shout out is now who I consider my boy, Blakey Fresh from Outcast Haven. Just a real joy on Twitter. Just a real homie. Also, Blake, if you want to come on the podcast, you just let me know, bro. Yeah, totally. Kind of, surprisingly social and nice from a kind of cantankerous, cranky podcast. So it's good to know that it's basically just Jason that, is the cranky one. And everybody else is a regular, normal, nice person. So
I do appreciate on that note that like I don't always agree with their beliefs, but I do appreciate that they just don't like give a shit and will just give it to you straight. That's better than the like, sugar coating it, telling people what they want to hear. So,
totally. They got a brand and they're sticking to it. It's great.
Yep.
So yeah, go follow Blake on Twitter. It's like @Blakey Fresh, I think. Something like that. Or Freshy Blake or Blakey Blake or Fresh Blake, somewhere around there. Use all those search terms, you'll get there.
There's probably other routes also, but all right, if that's all we got, let's move into the main topic here.
Hey y'all, it's Taylor again. I forgot to mention in the main pod when we recorded this the first time that it is also the month of July, so that means it is Fab Fitness Challenge time for the whole month of July. Big shout out to Brendan Patrick from Arsenal Pass, who started this community movement for health and well-being. So what is happening for the month of July is we are trying to gather the members of the Flesh and Blood community and improve our health. Now that can happen in a variety of ways, whether that is physically, mentally, spiritually, all of those things. Whatever you personally need to improve your health. I have been taking up running again. So typically I am a person who does anaerobic fitness and weight training and that sort of thing. But for this month, I am working on my cardiovascular health. So I've been running a couple of times a week. So in our Discord, we have a Fab Fitness specific channel where people are sharing their fitness and health journeys. And I'm trying to, every time I go on a run, post it on Twitter. So that's all the challenge is pick a goal or some parameters that you would like to follow for July to improve your health. You know, it can be sleep more, eat healthier, read a book every day, those sort of things. It doesn't have to be just about classic fitness based on weight or body fat percentage or weight on the barbell, that sort of thing. So whatever you need We here in the community are here for you, and that sort of thing. So if you want to get on that train, definitely do so. Get at me on Twitter or at Brendan on Twitter as well. And we're here for you. So whatever support you need, you have it. And good luck to you all. And back to our regularly scheduled program. Thank you. Okay, sweet. Main topic it is.
Everything we've learned so far about Uprising Limited. Specifically draft. I guess we can just clarify this is going to be most notably draft. Okay, so first up, and we'll talk about class cards when we talk about each of the classes also, but are there any like notable bombs or just like hot cards that you'd like to shout out, initially?
I mean, so I think, Uprising is obviously a really strong card. It feels like one of the most strong Majestics that you can play. You just get a ton of value out of it. I really like Spellfire Cloak. I was already really high on that piece of equipment, but that is like one of the pack one, pick ones for sure that I would take. I really, really like that card. Even just to hate draft it. And then as far as the dragons go, I think I was, and maybe we'll talk about this, like maybe Uvia I thought was going to be better than Necria, but I feel like Necria and Yindarai are kind of maybe the two best dragons. So I feel like those are really good. Like Yindarai is way better than I thought it was going to be. So I don't know if that's like bomby or hot cards, but they are certainly very, very powerful. All of those cards mentioned.
Yeah, definitely. Yindarai is pretty hard to get rid of.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Yeah, definitely. The wizard chest is just so crucial because your deck's not going to be perfect, right? So then when you have your blue ice bolt or whatever, you're like, God, this 2 cost, damn it. You just pop the chest and then it makes it good. Now you're turning 3 damage into 6. And hopefully the other times you'll have a 1 cost in there. And it can even come up on like your turn. It just like comes up all the time. I remember playing one draft where I did not have the chest and I was like, God, I counted like 5 times where I could have used it,
Yeah, and it makes your turn like so much better. It makes it so easy to play any 2-costed like blue from Arsenal and swing the moon while being able to block with 2 cards. Yeah. So really, really good.
Yeah. So some cards I singled out here that we are already on, but Aether Ice Vein Red specifically is just huge. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then like blue or even red Aether Hail. I'm so high on Aether Hail. Just because it's like the math in this set doesn't really add up for a lot of cards, right? Like, like blue Ice Bolt does what, 3 damage?
Yeah.
And
2 for 3.
Blue Aether Hail does 5 damage. It's just like, anyway. Also, Lava Burst is just so good. It's like one of those power cards that does not, like 5 turns always kind of hinge on like, 3 resources, 2 for the sword, a 1 cost, a 0 cost, a flame, and then Lava Burst. You know what I mean? Or like for Dromai, you can pull this off because you like maybe pitch a red to play a red and then have dragons and then lava. It's just like way above all the other rupture cards. It's just so playable so often. It also blocks for 3. You can also tide flippers it in a pinch. It's just like nuts. And in that same vein, Blaze Headlong is like, I'll stand by it, still pretty busted. That card is just so strong. Even like Scar, you kind of have to manufacture. Like it's not always online. I feel like Blaze Headlong is always online unless you're literally going to die. So those are pretty huge picks for me. Yep. So anyway, so first we're going to talk about drafting the heroes and like a little bit of notes on those, like cards, strategies, sleeper cards, whatever, what you're looking for, and then we'll move into like breaking down some of the matchups. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about how about 5 first?
Okay. So you want to talk about kind of the standout cards you want to be picking for that hero?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so I think some of the simple stuff, right? So this is what I've learned in Phi is like initially you go, sweet, I just need the low to the ground, most powerful, non-conditional go again attacks, right? Like that's definitely what we want. And maybe some of the like better draconic cards like Lava Burst, Breakpoint, some other ones that are eluding me. But what I found is that the you don't just do that and then wind up with like some blues that are crappy at the end of a pack. Because of like the nature of draconic being adding in so many more red cards, that you have to be a bit more active in picking your resources so you can get kind of like a really powerful deck but not the resources to kind of fuel it consistently. So for me, making sure that I keep track of how many like blues I pick, I'm trying to like pretty much pick blues I think every round to get to that like kind of 8 blue cards right around there, depending on what other cards you have. You might even go up to 10. So I found that to be like really key between 2 different Phi decks, because it allows you to still like free attack, sword, have one left over for a Phoenix Flame. And, that's just with like pitching a blue. So that's like pretty big in terms of like efficiency, because that's 7 damage, right?
Yeah, I 100% agree. You'd almost rather have some turns like 2 blues than no blues, unless your deck's really fire and is really free. I actually found that I personally like blue block for 3s are great, but I really like the blue go again, like blue unconditional go again cards, because then you want your foot on the gas anyway, and then it like really ups those ratios, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So if you draw 2 blues, it's like your damage goes down, but it only goes down by like 2 or 3 in the turn. So maybe you're swinging for like 9 instead of 12 or 10 instead of 14 or whatever. But it just ensures that you can always have those big turns instead of kind of bricking like a bunch of 1-cost reds in your hand. So yeah, I agree. Like 8 to 10 blues, and unlike in all other, well, maybe not all other, but in a lot of other limited sets, you would kind of get past kind of garbage blues and be able to fill it in this way. But yeah, like you said, because the draconics are all red, and the fact that maybe Iyslander wants blues also, so maybe grabbing those blue sifs or whatever, the competition for blues is actually like a bit higher. Also, I'm not really mad. So yellows in this set are like pretty bad, but I'm not really mad to have a few yellows in Phi actually, because it just kind of like, if you count your blues and you're like, okay, I have 8 blues, but then you count and you're like, oh well, now I have 4 yellows also. So then I'm like feeling pretty good there. And they only do 1 less damage for what they do. Also in terms of resources, I found Sash of Sandakai is insanely good. That card is nuts. Which I didn't like understand all of these interactions before, but it's just like it enables like a red hot turn or an engulfing flame wave turn. Which that card is better than I thought it was. It's a 2 cost, so I kind of hate it, but it buys cards out of your opponent's turn. So maybe if it's cost hampers your turn a bit, it still hampers their turn because they have to block it, which is pretty nice. So anyway, like using Sash to turn on, like, again, your deck's not going to be perfect. So when you draw a red Rebellious Rush, and you have to swing your sword, or it could, it could even turn on Searing Touch, right? Like 1 cost, 0 cost, sword, flame, Sash, or Searing Touch. There's just like so many applications for it, and it really smooths out your deck. So I can't, like, Sasha Sandakai might be like a pack one, pick one for me. It's just like, it's pretty insane. It's really, really good. What other notes on Fi do we got? You got anything else you want to throw in there?
No, I mean, I think, you can play it kind of like of a mid-range deck too. That's pretty good. I think, where you do pitch that blue, free card, sword, Phoenix Flame, it's like, pretty powerful and grindy, and it also leaves you room to be able to play your Oasis Respites, instead of Phoenix Flaming there if the wizard is trying to wizard you, and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. So I had a couple more. I actually really love Burn Away. I might, if I have a couple of those, I might put a couple more Phoenix Flames in my deck, but and I might do this a bit too hastily or flippantly, but I'll just burn my Phoenix Flame to play Burn Away. I mean, it's 0 for 4, go again, blocks 3. Great card. Opener, really, really good. Rising Resentment is also pretty nuts. Buys a card out of your opponent's hand. If it doesn't, then it really fixes your turn, and you can play something at a discount, which you'll may run into a lot.
Yeah, it's really good against Frostbite. So if you open up with Rising Resentment and it hits and you have another 0 cost, you can still banish it. And if they give you Frostbite, you just pay through it. You don't have to pay for it.
Yeah. Well, it'd have to be the second link, but yes.
Well, no, if it's the first one and you banish a 0 cost, right? It costs 1 less to play because it's also 0. It's less than the chain links you control.
If you play Rising Resentment, it gets a discount for the number of chain links at Rising Resentment.
Yeah. So if Rising Resentment hits and then you banish a 0, right, which is the only one you could do.
I don't think cost can go below 0.
Well, I don't know.
Well,
then maybe not.
Anyway, look it up.
Yeah, let us know.
Anyway, and my last little card I actually kind of liked was the
No, it does work because Rising Resentment is Draconic Chainlink 1, so it has to be less. So 0 is less than 1. Yep. So then
how does that get rid of the Frostbite?
Well, then if you have a Frostbite, you would then get to play your 0 cost. It would cost you 1 extra because of the Frostbite, but you get a discount from the hit effect on Rising Resentment, which brings it back down to 0.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. So it's not like it's -1,
right?
If you were to play it anyway. Yeah. It's how then those layers are stacked and resolve.
Sweet.
Figured it out.
Yeah. Sorry, it's also morning time here. So forgive us.
It's late morning.
It is. So the last little card I like in Fi is Inflame, which just swings for 1, go again. But I actually found when playing with this card, oftentimes I would have my Phoenix Flame in my arsenal, choosing to arsenal it in case I need an opener rather than play it at the very end of a link or of the chain. So if you have Inflame, you can have these turns where you play a card with Go Again, play your Phoenix Flame out, pop your Heat Wave to give it +1, and then close the chain. And then Inflame is one of the only cards, it just requires you to have played a red card this turn, not on this chain. So then after you close the chain, your Phoenix Flame goes in the graveyard, then you can play Inflame, play Phoenix Flame again for 2 because of the heat wave, and then continue on your turn, and then you can like sword whatever. Yeah, that little combo, it's just like, I guess Inflame really enables Heat Wave kind of whenever you draw it, whether you have multiple, flames in the graveyard or what. It's just like always enables it. And some 5 games are so fast that you're just like, great. Got 2 extra damage out of the gloves. Perfect. So anyway, just a go again card that swings for 1. It was like quite a bit better than I thought.
I think I'm still pretty low on this card. Just in terms of like its uses are a bit lower, I think, than other cards you can have in that deck. Just for me personally, like, I'm not denying that your combo you laid out is like very cool and pretty good, but I would not say, I forget what I rated Inflame. I could go look it up, but I'm not psyched on it.
Yeah, I should clarify. I'm not recommending this as like a higher level pick. I was just commenting on the like functionality. Surprised me in the deck.
Gotcha.
Alrighty. On to Iyslander. What else have we picked up here? Any Iyslander notes?
Nah, I mean, it's so hard to know like what we've already talked about. That's where I'm struggling. But so Iyslander for me is just like as many ice blues as you can hoover up makes that deck like way better, because the like play patterns of getting to play ice cards on your opponent's turn and Waning Moon and kind of grind them and deal damage is just really important, right? So your blue Aether Hails, even your blue Frostings, your blue Ice Bolts, just any blue, ice card is just straight money. Arctic Incarceration, super huge. Even, Cold Snap's just fine. Sometimes your opponent just plays out their arsenal card first, and you're like, ah. So then it's basically pay 1 for 3 damage in a card, right? Is it's like lowest value, I suppose.
Yeah, and a frostbite, but
yeah, and a frostbite.
Yeah.
So it's still pretty good.
Totally, I hear you. I'll even oftentimes run like some yellow ice cards, because they are a bit of resources, and it's just like ups that, like if they block for 3, great, and it just like ups the amount of ice in your deck, which for your Iyslander deck to function, you like have to fuse quite often, and it just really enables that. Even if not all these ice cards are like very playable, you can still block with them, play them in a pinch. You're just happy to have the high ice ratio.
Mm-hmm. I will say, oh no, go ahead.
Well, just sometimes if there's like a number of Iylanders at the table, there may not be that many ice cards.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, and it's kind of a bit harder to make that deck function without ice cards, because the frostbites are really important to your game plan of giving yourself like enough time to win the game. I think there's probably like, there is a world where you wind up with just a bunch of baller red spells and you just win the game in 3 turns or something, but maybe 4 turns. I don't know. But then your opponent just also has to have like no Quell and no Arcane Barrier. You just have like a superior deck anyway. One card I definitely slept on, and it still remains to be seen to see if my mind has changed, but Brain Freeze is quite a bit better than I gave it credit for. Like the fact that you get to just take a card away when you fuse with it is like pretty impactful in terms of like being able to slow your opponent down and create a window for yourself to deal damage. Pretty huge.
Yeah, I will definitely second that. Just because it like blocks for 3 also,
Yeah.
you know? And a lot of times with Iyslander, you're just like blocking a lot um, to, manufacture your tempo turns or whatever. So the fact that you can just play Brain Freeze, fuse with the card you want to arsenal is like, yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not insane, but when
No.
you draw a hand that doesn't improve your game state or isn't going to win you it like
Yeah.
really just gets you there.
Yeah.
Which a lot of times you need to buy time with a lot of these heroes actually till you find your money turns.
Yeah. I mean, even so, like, in no ways am I saying you should pick this card over other cards. I'm just saying if you wound up with like one red copy or maybe two blue copies, they might do a bit more for you than you think they're going to. Like, if you save like blue Aether Hail and for some reason you have red Brain Freeze, that's still kind of a sick 2-card hand where you play Brain Freeze and fuse it and then get rid of a card on your opponent's turn and then arsenal blue Aether Hail, because the red one allows you to get rid of any card you want, which is sick.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. Like you can get rid of their only blue,
Right.
or their most powerful attack or whatever. It's pretty great.
Yeah, it totally is.
Yeah, so in that same vein, like blue Aether Hail is I think it's way better than blue Arctic Incarceration. It's just like a frostbite and 5 damage is nuts.
For a blue.
Um
Yeah.
yeah, also the 2 ping, you can like shoot a dragon out of the air and still hit your opponent for 3 and not be like too mad because you only wasted 2 damage. Ice card blue blocks for 3. It's just like the versatility of this card is, I mean, this to me is like the best card in Iyslander and like one of the best in the set. It just does everything. So I'm like pretty high on that. Another card I really like, which I definitely slept on, is Singe. Because just after playing for a bit, like the Iyslander into Dromai matchup is not favored. But if you have like a couple poppers and a couple singes, then it becomes like really winnable. Because otherwise you might just kind of drown in like once they get 3 arcane barrier up, you're just like not getting damage through and they're increasing their board state and you're leaking damage. And it just seems like there's no way to win between their quell and arcane barrier. But a lot of time, you can see a red singe, play it, deal 2 damage to them, arsenal a card. Now they're very susceptible to your arcane damage again.
Yeah, it kind of keeps a lid on things, right? Kills an Ashwing, basically deals 4 damage to them, for a single blue. It's pretty efficient and useful.
Definitely. And yeah, I'm not saying pick that, but a lot of times you'll have packs like wheeling or you'll get a pack with like no crucial pieces to your puzzle, right? So then I found that oftentimes I might like in Iyslander, I might grab like, like a red singe instead of, like a yellow critical strike or something that doesn't function very well for her. And yeah, there's only 3 matchups and it vastly improves your worst one. So I'm sitting a bit higher on that card. Really performed.
Definitely.
I guess my last Iyslander note here is like Glacial Horns, as suspected, just really overperforms. Because it's like part of combos, but you might not use it in a combo most of the time, but it's like Brain Freeze, right? It kind of like buys you a turn. Like if you don't see the cards you want, you have to block out, you want to set something up, you just like freeze their arsenal or freeze their arsenal in an Ashwing, and it's the same thing, getting rid of a card. And I found it's like been very utile that way.
Yeah, I think this is maybe a little off topic, but something we have talked about together a few times is kind of how the equipment in the set is very good and is super, super useful, and finding kind of the right time to use your equipment rather than using it to like pivot off of is kind of the nuance to it, right? Like uh, you're being able to use all three parts or all three resources on one piece of quell on like a really wide turn or something like that is really important. When you can find that space to do it, it saves you a lot rather than like trying to kind of use it to pivot, because it is like powerful, but it's like not that powerful. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or using it with like brothers in arms to block something for 5, or, whatever it is. Using equipment at like the most opportune moment you can, rather than trying to save it for, something bigger or larger or something like that.
Yeah, that's definitely something we talked about off the pod, just how like, or maybe we talked about it on the pod anyway. But yeah, how like, I mean, these are like blitz games, right? Some are a bit grindier, but they can be like really fast. So I'll oftentimes use my quell against Fi just when I have an extra blue in hand, not when it's not like the end of the round when I like really need my armor, because it might be kind of awkward to use it. I tend to sometimes just use it, as efficiently as possible. Like I have an extra blue.
Yeah.
I'm just going to use it to block all these one pingers. And then I find that that's still really great use. Or like in Dromai, I'll use it against Iyslander before I have my Ashwings up,
Yeah.
and, because then after you have Arcane Barrier, you're pretty good to go. So might as well save some life early there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So keep that in your back pocket, everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to move us into Dromai.
Perfect. That's what I was going to do as well.
Perfect. So I guess my first big note is as Dromai is the high health dragons are like really clutch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Iyslander can't ping him out of the air mid-flight, which really sucks.
I like it that all these dragons are flying also.
Oh yeah, totally. They'll have flying.
Yeah, they're all winged creatures. It's just nice. Well, maybe not Miragai. That seems like a water-based dragon, but
that's true. Well,
yeah.
Ping it out of the ocean. But
Sidebar about Miragai is my favorite dragon art. It's so cool that every time I'm like, oh, is it foil? No. It's just so
nice.
cool. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, just by the nature of Iyslander cards, she can't do like more than I think 3 damage on your turn. So if you have a 4 health or higher dragon attacking, she can't just end your turn. Right. So that's been like pretty huge. It works the same way against Fi. Instead of like a Phoenix Flame killing it, they have to actually dedicate cards to it, or you can just like attack with it again next turn. So yeah, any of those higher health dragons I found like very, very good.
Uvia, Necria, Thamai, obviously.
Definitely.
And then the legendary dragons.
Yeah, and then in the same dragon vein, this is pretty obvious, right? But Uvia is just like insane against Iyslander. Your whole game plan changes. Then you're just trying to make Ash to keep up with the Ashwings and just like grind him out, because you can like actually kind of fatigue Iyslander if you're able to block a lot of the arcane damage. So that's like pretty oppressive. And then I did not realize this looking at spoilers, but after having played, Vincerakai is awesome against Fi. This is like the toughest matchup maybe in the set, Dromai against Fi. But if you play Vincerakai against Fi, that's a 2-card hand, and they have to eat 9 damage or block for 6. And then they have to kill it on their turn, which might only cost them like a Phoenix Flame or something. But the fact that you just like buy a lot of cards out of their hand, and sometimes it's kind of hard to like force a tempo change against Fi, and this dragon really does it. Terrible against Iyslander, just pings it right out of the air. But it's just like it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah. My notes about Dromai is it seems like in our testing that it's kind of the hardest deck to make very good, you know, because you can get like burned down too quickly by Iyslander before you get any Ash Wings out. Fi just can kind of run you over sometimes. So it just is like a little bit more delicate, it seems, in the deck you need to construct, or at least it is, for me personally, has been a little bit harder to kind of figure out what the actual cards are to draft, kind of specifically for getting to play dragons and Ashwings and that sort of thing. A stronger, or maybe not a stronger, a more flexible archetype though in Dromai is like the Cinnapai deck, right? Where with like a single blue, if you have Dune Breakers and Ember Maws, you can come in from anywhere between 13 to 10 damage, or 9 damage, just with a single blue. And how poppers are like a little bit less, what's the word, abundant than in other sets. So it makes it like that is like a reasonable strategy. Even if you do Ember Maw red for 8 is like huge. That's like almost 50% of a character's health, you know? So that's like a lot of damage to take. And you can only take so many of those, especially when you like do a bit of an old mid-rangey where you just kind of block with some cards, attack for 8, block for some cards, attack for 7, can be pretty huge. So
Yeah, I agree. Learning Dromai has been like the hardest one in this set. But I think it just, in like comparison to Arya, where it was kind of like enact your game plan and build the most consistent deck. This set, which I really like about this set, it's like definitely just more matchup based and mid range. Right. So I feel like in every game I play and every matchup, I need to know the critical cards in my deck, and I need to just block out and look for them, or I need to understand the tempo of the game. I feel like a lot of players make the mistake of trying to turn like a mediocre hand into something, right? Like, I feel like I'm losing and there's so much pressure and I need to like make this hand do something or whatever. But, oftentimes it's not really worth it, right? Like it's better to preserve a higher life total and know your win conditions in your deck in this matchup, right? So like an example in Dromai I would use is like, I don't really like red rake against Fi.
mm-hmm.
I mean, it's fine if you play it early. If you have the breathing room, it's great, right? But it costs you 2 cards and is like Ash negative to just do like max 3 damage and then maybe some future damage. You know what I mean? It's just like not that efficient if the Fi player is good enough or their deck's good enough, right? You'd much rather be swinging, like you said, like Ember Maw.
Yeah. Or even just a dragon, right? With
Right.
a little bit more attack or health. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a free dragon, right? Because then they have to kill it or it's just going to keep putting in work and stuff. So, like rake against Fi, I might choose to block with if I have to. Whereas against Iyslander, I'm going to prioritize playing it out. So the game state really changes. I feel like there's a lot of cards that are kind of matchup dependent. If you have the luxury of sideboarding them, but also just like in terms of what you block with and what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Which is really cool, but is like pretty complex.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I've been really enjoying about the set is, and it's one of the things I really like about Flesh and Blood is how many different things cards can do, right? And now it seems in the limited set, right? Like you said, cards have different roles depending on who you're playing. And I don't know if we have really seen that before in other limited sets in terms of like what the cards can do. They're either blocking or using their abilities. And I don't remember a time when I was like oh, right, this card is super good in this matchup, but not very good in this matchup, right? Other than like
Yeah.
a defense reaction against a arcane deck, right? But even then in Arcane Rising, like Kano will have some attacks sometimes, so sometimes it's reasonable. So anyway, yeah, is a really cool layer to this limited set for sure.
Definitely. My last note on Dromai is just, and this is just resoundingly obvious, but it's just how clutch free or like red go again is, especially free red go again to turn on your dragons.
Yeah.
It's just like you can be winning the whole game and about to kill them, and then if you don't draw a way to turn on your dragons, you just like lose all the tempo and can't threaten very much, and like can lose all the whole game on the spot. I'm not quite sure what the right ratio is, but I've definitely included some of those like suboptimal draconic cards for Dromai, just to up that. I've also included Phoenix Flames before, which I don't really like, just to up that ratio of red go again, because you look through your pool and you're like, this is like probably not enough. So yeah, I think that's what makes it so hard, right? Like you have to make Ash, you have to turn it into dragons, you have this whole engine, but then also it's like in limited, you can just kind of brick in that aspect as well, especially since you have to compete with the Phis for the red auto go again cards. So that's there's a lot of priorities in Dromai, unfortunately, but that's definitely, it just sucks to like lose a game right at the last minute because you're like, ugh.
Yeah. I mean, so I have some thoughts about what you said there. So like I definitely tried the theory of Phoenix Flames in Dromai and it went super terrible.
Yep.
and it just wound up being like, oh, I can win these matchups if I took these Phoenix Flames out because they were just a liability, because they were non-blockers in my hand that are red pitches, and either they're like cycling back around for second cycle to just die because I have cards that don't block, or they were just too awkward to use them in that red go again role, I personally found. And then I cut them out of the deck and just put in some other cards that I had in my sideboard that maybe aren't great for matchups, but then they were just like other cards I could block with in my deck or use if I really needed them to. And that actually felt like way better. Now, I'm not saying like Phoenix Flames in Dromai are like not a thing. I think there's probably something there if you get the right like little combo of cards, but it's much harder to pull off. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just bad. I meant like before I've included like one just to up my like red go again, count, because it was scarily low.
Totally. Another card I was pretty low on and think is maybe better. Maybe, I don't know. I forget where I was, but Sand Cover is actually a little bit better than I thought it was going to be. Just turning an Ash into a block for 4 is pretty sick, especially because you can do it against Iyslander too. So it had more applications than I thought it was going to, and was a little bit more clutch than I also thought it was going to be, because I was like, why burn Ash? Dragons why defend when you can attack is basically the theory behind that. But in reality, it's like, well, sometimes you got to defend.
Definitely. That card can be really offline, which is why I don't love it. But yeah, I do think the red one is pretty good just because of its versatility. You can even play it to give your dragons go again, which is suboptimal, but
so true though.
All right. Well, you want to move into matchups here?
Yes, I totally do.
First one I have lined up is Fi versus Iyslander. So I have a couple notes from both sides and just how this matchup goes and how to play it. Do you want me to start off here, or do you want to lead us off?
I will preface up top here that a lot of this is kind of generalized strategy, in that usually, right? So, like, if both players are playing into their general strategy, then the better deck just kind of usually wins, right? Like, me and Isaac were talking about this before the pod, and kind of the nuance in all of these matchups kind of breaks my brain and is hard to kind of articulate in these like one-on-one scenarios, because I always just am going like, well, what if you drafted this card, and then what if you drafted that card? You know what I mean? Like, I'll just counter every strategy you're saying by drafting the right card for it, so that the games are really won in the draft, right? That is like the hugest part of this whole thing. Not saying you can't outplay your opponents, and the information Isaac is going to bestow upon you will maybe help you outplay your opponents, but you really got to focus on like having the better deck in the draft, and that like solves a lot of your problems a lot of times, right?
Definitely. Like, if you read your seat right and you're one of the only whatever players at the table, your deck's going to be better than everybody else's. And especially in the bad matchups, right? Like Iyslander into Dromai or Dromai into Fi. Like you said, you're going to win that matchup in the draft. You also have to play really well, but sometimes no amount of good play will get you out of your yellow sift, blue trade in, et cetera, turn.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, even though like we're going to talk about Fi versus Iyslander, where, on paper, Iyslander might be favored, you can still just like run over Iyslander if you just have like a better deck, So
Yeah.
that's my preface and my thesis statement.
Definitely. Like because the Fi player can just be crippled the whole time, but if the Iyslander, bricks a hand really bad, then, Fi can just do 14 damage. And then you're like in a pretty bad spot, which is where my advice comes back to like blocking out and looking for your good turns, right? Because it is such a fast format. You're probably only going to get like one pivot turn a game. And we'll talk about this a bit more in the matchups and later on. But, if this is not your hand and you say you can block for 11. So even if Fi has this killer turn and they present 14 damage, if you block for 11, you only take 3 damage, right? And then you're going to keep looking for your good cards. And you can't like win this way, but that's one thing that surprised me about the format, is that it was, I guess, with Quell against Iyslander, or like Dromai's a bit slower, or just blocking against Fi, you can actually mitigate like most of their damage over and over again. And like really look for your winning turn. Which sometimes maybe against like Briar didn't feel that way, but
yeah, because you just lose to the like constant arcane ping. Right?
Yeah.
So what I want to ask you about Fi versus Iyslander, on which, if you're Fi, do you go first or second? And if you're Iyslander, do you go first or second?
Oh yeah, good question. So if I'm Fi, I want to go first. If I'm Iyslander, I want to go first. Right? Like,
you think so?
Yes. Because Fi can leak some damage. You can almost always leak some damage and get an arsenal card turn one, or at least buy some of their Quell. And so if you go first, you can probably leak some damage. Then if Iyslander is going second, they can swing at you and arsenal a card, but they, that's what they do turn one anyway, right? Is like swing free arcane, you can't block, and then arsenal a card, and then be able to frostbite you on your first turn. So you're not really buying the tempo as much as you'd like by going second. You know what I mean? Like most players would, most times going second, you can like seize the tempo, but Iyslander kind of needs to like get the card in arsenal. And again, she would just do that anyway. Swing a big red arcane card and arsenal a blue ice card turn 1, which you like can't block out anyway, even though you draw back up. Do you have any counter thoughts to that?
Yeah, I kind of think as Iyslander, you want to go second.
Ooh, little disagreement here. Perfect.
Well, because so like you don't know what the card is you are going to get to Arsenal, right? So if you go second, it just allows you to just basically block with 4 cards for free on their turn, right? So they like you potentially leak less damage because you are then not trying to prioritize using your arsenal card as a means to slow them down, right? When their damage is like a bit more impactful when your second turn comes around. So I kind of think you want to go second because then you can still like spell them on turn 1, right? And arsenal a card, but you haven't like potentially leaked as much damage as you might have when you're already down 2 health points. So that's kind of my reasoning behind that. And then the same would be for Phi, is that I don't I guess it kind of depends. Like if I have a little bit of arcane barrier and quell, then I might just go second against Iyslander because I want my attacks to be more impactful. But if I don't, maybe I do want to go first. So I think in Phi there's a bit more nuance depending on your like equipment loadout. So that's what I got. Yeah.
Disagreed on all 4. Perfect. Or 3.5. Alrighty. So I just have a couple. So in Phi, I actually like to side in a couple more blues. Obviously, but so you have like 7 to 10 blues, you're probably going to run like 8 normally, but I'll even go up to like 10 just so, because your damage output is going to be higher even with 10 blues on average, and it'll make you like more resilient to the taxes and frostbites and stuff. So
yeah,
again, in my pool, if I have a couple too many blues, it doesn't always feel the best, but at least it helps you out here in your bad matchup. You can also, I find sorry, I don't really have an example of this, but I find that sometimes you can kind of like structure your turn to hedge your bets a little bit. In order to see like how many frostbites they're going to give you or what they're going to present. And, maybe you're like saving a blue in hand, like a little bit later than you would just against Dromai, where you're just going totally aggro. So, if you kind of look for that, like play out your safe thing, wait to see what they do, and then you can, proceed. Can be pretty pertinent. I guess on my last thing is like, we already talked about this a bit, but like using quell when it's available, not like to save your life at the end. So if I draw like 2 blues in a hand and I don't get, 2 frostbite, and I'm only going to present like 1 or 2 more damage with those blues, maybe I'll just burn my quell and block 3 instead and stay in a better position.
Yeah. I'd also say like just kind of riffing off of that, obviously Oasis Respite is like a really, really good card. So like any color of Oasis you wound up drafting as Phi is really useful in this matchup to help stop some of the like maybe bigger arcane damage, or it could be really backbone. It could be really backbreaking if you have like a well-timed Oasis Respite on kind of their like larger damage output where they're trying to put you in like a zone where they can kill you or strip cards or what have you. So even if you drafted yellows or blues of that card, it can be really, really useful.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Those cards really keep you alive.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that goes for like all the classes, right? Like everybody wants red Oasis Respite. It's like
Yeah.
pack one, pick one for sure, no problem.
Yeah, definitely. Um, so then for Iyslander, we kind of talked about this a little bit already, but again, it's just like waiting for her good cards, like block with your garbage, manufacture pivot turns. And again, in this format, I find in a lot of matchups the pivot turns are so huge because I found like for Iyslander, especially against aggressive Fi, it's more about rather than just like a steady blue and a little chip and mostly block, which is like part of your game plan though. It can be a lot more beneficial to like, kind of bide your time and do what you can, but like prioritize your health or like getting through your deck, because then that turn where you can like have enough life to take a bit of damage, and then say you play a red Aether Ice Vein, fuse it, arsenal, a blue Aether Hail, right? Like that's the huge pivot turn where you win the game because you strip a card, deal 5 damage, or strip another card if they want to block some, and then you're going to do another 5 damage and a frostbite on their turn. Now you're like really on the front foot. They can't present enough to like, kill you or win the game. You get all your cards to choose how to like proceed. And so I find that turn is like maybe more important than just like, I don't know, a steady one frostbite on their turn, or just trying to get in some damage, even if it's like really inefficient, or, like taking a bunch to then like play yellow ice bolt on your turn. It's like, no, I'm just going to block for 6 more. And I'm going to like,
Yeah.
I'm going to find this game state where I can win, which is not always very easy because sometimes you're getting run over and don't have the time for this. But I found like, I mean, that's really the clutch play style, I guess, in my limited experience, my limited experience.
Totally. I would echo all of those sentiments for sure. Like, because in Iyslander, you don't want your health total low enough, right? So you don't want to trade 5 damage for 3 often, right? Because you just lose that because you're already down 2 health. You know what I mean? So it's like you play Arctic Incarceration, give them 2 frostbites, they pay through it, and you wind up taking 5 damage, and then you're like, well, I guess I'll Waning Moon them also, right? Um, and then you just like arsenal a card, but you like lose on like that damage exchange. Whereas like you in classic wizard style, you want them to like extend themselves a little bit, and you can then punish them in those like windows, right?
Mhm.
Or like deny them arsenals by waiting until like they have 1 card left in hand, and then like none floating, and then you play blue Aether Ice Vein, um, or something like that, and strip that arsenal card or whatever, So yeah, it's not so much about like consistent chip damage, which it like can be if you have plenty of block for 3s, but it's really about finding those windows to punish them and win over like incremental advantage states like that. Like you're totally fine with
Yeah.
trading 3 for 3, right? If you're dealing 3 and you only take 3, you're totally okay with that because you're a wizard and you can beat them on their turn, um, with your instant spells. But you just don't want to make that gap so big that you can't get behind it. I think too there's Iyslander decks that you wind up with a couple of really good red spells, that you can pivot off of, like Aether Ice Vein. I would say even yellow Aether Ice Vein is like really good. And then like Ice Bolt red, um some of the polar caps can be useful as well, like whack them for some damage, give them a frostbite, tax them before their turn even starts, type of deal. So if you kind of have the innate power in your Iyslander deck, it can play out a little bit different, but you still need that really good backbone of block for 3 ice blues, right?
Yeah. Alrighty. 5 versus Dromai. Let's get into
Ooh,
it.
Okay, who goes first, Fi or Dromai? If you're Fi,
Um,
do you go first or second?
oh, this is a good question. So I, as Dromai, I have been going second against Phi because then I can decide whether I want to pitch 2 reds and take some damage to Miter and get 2 Ash, or if I just need to block out if Phi is having a killer turn. And then I get the first real swing at Phi, which this is like a bad matchup. So I kind of want that. Even though setting up is so good, it's just like, you know, I mean, starting with an arsenal and a dragon would be awesome, but it's just like odds are you're not going to have that hand. So I've been taking the first real swing, but that could be that could be incorrect, right? Like getting that free ash off the miter, the arsenal, that might be a little bit better. But that's what I've been trying so far. As Phi, I want to go second, right? I'm just trying to go face and race you. You know, I mean, that's my only Phi note here too. It's just like I'll ignore Ash Wings unless I'm on the back foot. Only kill the dragons I have to. It's just like if my Phi deck's good enough, I'm gonna put Dromai on a very short clock and make it really hard to just like
Yeah.
save cards.
Yeah.
What do you think about the turn?
Yeah, I
First or
agree.
second?
Both decks want to go second. You want to deny Fi that the first turn where their damage matters, and as Fi, you want the first turn where damage matters.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think that one's a bit more cut and dry for sure.
Yep. Well, I gave you my only Phi advice in this matchup.
I
Do you have
mean,
anything you want to add to that?
That's basically it. I mean, there's fucking cheeky shit where you hit an Ashwing to like get a hit effect off or something. You know what I mean?
Totally.
But for the most part, you're just like giving them no room to breathe, and it's really hard as Dromai. Unless you're kind of the Cinepie deck, then it's like a little bit easier to have parity in that game. But if you're like Ashwing spam or a bit more dragon heavy, it makes it really hard to have the cards to have any sort of board state.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talked about that a little bit already in the Dromai section, but again, as Dromai, I'm just trying to block and manufacture a big turn, right? Because if I can have a turn that's like, Scar, Blaze, Headlong, play Necria, that's like 12 damage in a board state. So I can then block and also threaten again. But you can't, and that's only, that's 4 cards. So I block with 1 card, I guess.
Right.
But you can't.
You're just the game state you manufactured for that turn is that you have a fairly high life total, like, 13 health or something like that,
Definitely. Or the Centipie swing back just to threaten their life. But yeah, short of, I guess that's the only advice I have is just maintain your life total so you can buy your super great. Maybe you have a couple Ash Wings and you can use Sash or, tack a Red Hot or a Lava Burst on the end. Like Scar, Ashwing, Lava Burst, is like a more muted version of this example. But you're not going to get many windows, and you have to be able to capitalize them when you can.
Yeah, definitely. Patience is key. And that's the only time I've won as Dromai versus Phi is just being really patient, trying to just make like the best exchanges I can. Cognizant of what's left in my deck versus what I've blocked with, etc. You got to play both sides.
Yeah. And of course, like Vincerakai is the dream here, but there's also just other like kind of cheeky ways. Like you could take a bit of damage, or maybe they have a bit of an off turn and you like play Asvalai, which is free, and then play a Sigil of Protection. So that's 3 cards. So, but now you have a dragon on the board that has 3 health and a red Sigil of Protection out that blocks 4. So this next turn coming in, you're a little bit more set up to then like try to further your pivot. I'm trying to present other things other than dream hands, but that would get you there a little bit as well.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, last matchup besides the mirrors, but Iyslander versus Dromai.
So who's going first and who's going second?
Oh yeah. As Iyslander, I want to go first as either, really. I mean, this is a longer match maybe. Um, and Dromai, you don't want to burn your quell blocking their free first turn. You would both very much enjoy setting up here.
Yeah, I agree. You both want to go first. That's the dream, especially as Iyslander. You want to go first. Hopefully, you draw into like a 4 damage spell, and the resources to just basically deal or threaten 6 damage. It's kind of the minimum you want to do right there, and then start your game. Where they're hopefully on 14 to your 18.
Yeah. So as far as how this plays out, so on the Iyslander side of it, I've found that like you're the aggressor, right? You're like going pretty hard until they have out like 3 or 4 Ashwings, and then can kind of like out tempo you and block up most of your stuff, and then the game can kind of go quite long. So this is like where Singe comes in, right? Like if I see a red Singe first hand, I'll just like pitch it and then see it late game to then get rid of their arcane barrier and kill them, hopefully. I actually really enjoy this matchup because it goes kind of long and it's like very tempo-y. And there can kind of be 2 stages, like burn them down, and then they're like they have their AB up. So then you got to like kind of manage your things here. But again, a lot of your spells and the little blue pingers that do 1 damage, which are kind
Ice
of garbage
bind,
and
frosting, yeah,
kind of garbage in other matchups, are like really pay for themselves here because you can just end their turn. And well, Dromai can block a lot of AB and like build their board state. Iyslander can also buy a lot of time with the like pinging dragons out of the air and waiting for that second that second pitch stack or second cycle where you see your Singes and your blue Aether Hail or whatever's coming.
Yeah, totally. Any 4 damage spell becomes like really important because you got to kill Thamai like instantly, or any free 4 damage attack, right? Like that dragon's got to freaking go. And Maragai, right? Just like 4 damage spells, 2 damage spells are really important because that's a lot of dragons that give you trouble, their health total. And you're kind of playing chicken, right? As Dromai, you're like trying not to attack with an Ashwing if you don't have to, because they'll just freaking shoot it, and then you lose go again. So you have to like sequence your turn correctly, right? And as Iyslander, they're trying to play around that, so you're trying to like double play around. You know what I mean? It's like, I know you're going to play this way, so I'm going to play this way type of, I don't know, mental chess that's going on or whatever, which makes it a really fun matchup for sure.
Yeah. And on that same note, Sixers are great to end their turn, but I've also used a Sixer to kill Uvia,
Yeah.
So sometimes having like one time I killed something with a yellow scar into like a yellow brothers in arms or something. Like it's really bad, but it's just like, it's got to go. Whatever I find that can get rid of it.
Totally. And like getting rid of the dragons is more impactful than it feels, right? As the player who gets rid of the dragon, you're like, well, God. But then as the player who had the dragon, you're like, dang, there goes my weapon, my repeatable damage I can do that doesn't cost a card.
Totally. They only have so many dragons in limited, right? Yeah. And if you get rid of it, it's gone.
Yeah. So 3 or 4, right? Maximum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess we already covered the Dromai side a little bit, but it's just like attack with your high health dragons first. Sometimes you won't even attack with your Aether Ashwings if you can like play a Cenopai instead, like Ember Moss Cenopai at the end, and then you can keep your arcane barrier up. It's really kind of waiting them out and blocking some of that arcane damage.
For sure.
All right. Well, we got the mirror matches here that are going to go pretty fast. I only have one note about Fi.
Yeah, I have some stuff to say, but it's short. But let's get into the mirrors.
Cool.
So Fi mirror, go.
So the first player to be able to threaten lethal is going to win here, right? So your whole job is to manufacture this game state, right? So like, say I block, say you're having a bit of an off turn and I take a bit of damage, right? So say I go down to 12 life, but then I have all my cards or 4, and then I have this huge turn and I get you down to like, 3 life. And then you have all 5 of your cards, right? But now I'm able to block with a couple cards, not die, and I'm able to threaten your life total like way over.
Yeah.
So this is kind of what I'm looking for. Did that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I think of it as like the first player to deal 12 or more damage in those first couple of turns is like the one who wins, right? Is if you're able to get them like sub 10 health, then it's easy for you to play a bit more mid-rangey and, block with 2 cards, keep 2, 1, or something like that. Threaten 7. Now they're on 3 health. So if they don't like kill you, you start consistently muting their turns with just like single cards. So, yeah, that's how I think of it.
Yeah, that once you can start stripping cards because you're threatening lethal, it's just like you're winning. And that's a mistake players will make because they're like, well, I'm going to have this huge turn back, right, with my 5 card hand. But then if you go to 2 and you're not going to kill them and you get them to 6 or 5, you know what I mean? Then it's just so much easier. You're not in a good position there.
Yeah, totally. Because now one 0 cost 4 card requires 2 cards to block it or else you die. Right.
Yeah.
So, yep.
All right.
Iyslander
mirror.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Whoever has Spellfire Cloak wins. Then if you both have it, whoever has more Oasis Respites also wins.
Oh, that's a good point. I think I beat Colin and he had a cloak and I didn't, but agreed. I still agree with you.
Totally. Because you're like, your frostbite and shit doesn't matter because they can just respond to that trigger layer. So they don't really affect you too much.
Dampen is a Kano card, not an Iyslander card. It does not work.
Totally. You hit them and then they just respond on top of it and then you have nothing to block. It's only good if it's like the red because it's like 2 for 4, which is like not bad, but you get no secondary effects there.
Also attacks any target, so would kill a dragon, but
yeah. I mean, maybe there's like blue dampen shenanigans, but that card's bad. So I'd rather just have like something else.
Yeah. Cost 2.
Yeah.
This is just the classic wizard match, right? It's like they can respond for lethal at instant speed. So you have to think way ahead of steps or, way ahead of time.
Yeah.
And you make these incremental chip steps, as do they. And you want to be in this spot where when they're overextended, you can present lethal on top of it and not be in that spot. It's really hard to not get in that spot.
Yeah,
it's like a very nuanced matchup.
Yeah, because you're jockeying for that their health total is low enough that you can spell them on their turn, right, after they've done something. So then that they have to like waning moon you to try to kill you, but then you can just, in response to their moon, use your moon to kill them, right? It's kind of like what you're trying to do there.
It sucks to draw a dud hand in this matchup though when you're both getting low because you're like, all right, don't show on my face that I got nothing here and have to stall for 2 turns until I have something.
3 ice cards that deal no damage.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna play one of them and then waning moon. Sweet. Yeah. Pretty fun, I think. Matchup. The mirror is really fun. Yeah. That's my favorite mirror match. for sure.
Oh, nice.
Dromai mirror match. What do you got?
So there's like I haven't played this very much, but there are some Dromai decks, like I said, that are just like, Scar, Blaze Headlong, Free Dragon, Lava Burst, so you can definitely win that way. But in general, I think that having a superior board state will, win you this matchup, and your Ashwings can kill their Ashwings and vice versa. So use your Ashwings to kill theirs and then later attack them with,
Right. Yeah. What dragons everybody has is also really important, right? Like Yindarai is super clutch in this matchup. Necria is really sick. The ones with a little bit higher health are pretty sweet. I wonder too, this I need to test, is if Centipede deck beats Dragon deck,
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, if Dragon deck has a 3 poppers, stands a pretty good chance. If you have no poppers, then yeah, probably not.
Yeah. So interesting to find out. If you already know the answer to that question, send us a message. Okay. So shall we take a short commercial break here before we move into our signature segments?
Oh, sounds great.
Great. Okay. We'll see you back after this commercial break.
Have you ever been belittled by brutes? Perhaps you've been overwhelmed by non-stop ninja naughtiness. Tired of being whipped by wizards and warriors? Are you wrecked non-stop by rune blades?
Then what you need is Teklo. At Teklo Industries, we provide the tech you need to survive the wilds both in and outside the city of Metrix. At its core, Teklo is all about speed, and our products are legendary. We have the heart and the drive to keep you alive. Teklo Industries, building a better future, yesterday.
And we're back. Okay, so
let's do it.
So sweet. Coming at me hot. So before we get into our signature segments, we have quite a few questions from our community members on Discord or from Twitter. And we kind of just we've answered some of these, but we're going to blast through these anyway, just to kind of drive home any points, or maybe we missed a little nuance to it. So here we go. From Discord, Fox51, shout out to Nate, wanted us to go over the pack structure. So how a pack is constructed in Uprising is you usually have 3 commons right up front, and those are either talents or generics, right? So it's either ice cards, generic cards, or draconic cards are right there in the front 3. Then you have your equipment slot, and then you have your rare, which can be any card, right? Generic, talent, class. And then you have your rare plus slot, which is the same in terms of what card it can be. And then you have your foil, which also can be any card, any rarity. Then after that is you have your 7 extra commons, and those are class cards only, right? So I think me and Isaac were talking, you're guaranteed to get 2 class cards in those 7 minimum.
Yeah, I think in the whole pack there's at least 2 of each class card.
Yeah, I think so. And then you have your 2 tokens at the end of that, right? So you can get into weird spots, like in this particular pack I have in front of me. There are only 2 cards for Draconic Illusionist. There isn't a Draconic card, a Draconic Talented card, and there's only 2 Draconic Illusionists. So like, even if I were to pick, and there's 7 cards a wizard could run. So even if I pick a wizard card, right, it's still the signal I'm passing is it seems like Draconic Illusionist is cut off and wizard is open, right? So can be a bit tricky like that, and is something to be cognizant of as well.
Yeah, I agree, because packs can be so skewed like that. I think really early it's easier to look for like markers, right? Like pack one, pick ones that got passed to you. So if there's like
There's no
you know,
equipment.
yeah, no equipment, or like if somebody passes you like a red, Aether Ice Vein and a blue Aether Hail, right? It's like odds are they didn't choose a wizard card, because those are like the two best in my opinion.
Right.
Or like maybe a Kyloria, or just something like that. Or like a red Ember Moss Centipede, so yeah, initially, because it's so hard to tell, I try to look for like those kind of markers for my initial impression, and then also try to kind of like keep track of how many, like once I'm past like 3 or 4 packs, kind of notice like, okay, there have been not very many Iyslander, or there have been less excellent Iyslander cards across these last like 3 or 4 packs. So odds are Iyslander's not open, because it's like you can't just count what's been taken.
Totally. Yeah. So for example, in this pack also, like another signal you can send, right? Because there are only 2 illusionist cards. One of them is blue Dust Up. Blech. And the other one is red Billowing Mirage. Pretty good. If you take that red Billowing Mirage, pretty good card in your Draconic Illusionist deck, and it really sends signals like there is no Draconic Illusionist here for you, right? So then in pack 2, potentially you really get a nice pick of Draconic Illusionist if that's what you wind up going into, because you should have been cutting off everybody upstream from you from it.
And that brings up
at least sending that signal.
Yeah, that brings up a really good point. I feel like people weigh sending signals less. I mean, obviously, right, because you're going to packs 1 and 3 you're receiving. So reading your seat is like arguably more important than the signals you send.
Right.
But with that caveat, it's like, I mean, sending signals is super important. Like if I pack 1, pick 1, say there's no, say there's no good Dromai cards except this red Ember Moss Centipede, right? There's very few illusionist cards and there's no other good ones. So if I pick that pack 1, pick 1, I'm sending the signal instantly downstream that I'm an illusionist, right? So I've already cut that off. That might not end up being my seat, and I might not end up taking that. But now I have this bit of information as I move into like packs 2 through 6 or whatever. Like
Picks.
I've already established I'm illusionist. And then, maybe I'll switch out pretty fast, and then I'll change the signal and they'll pick up that it actually is open. But, you just send that signal right away and you're like a bit ahead of the game. That way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. That's the beautiful part about draft, is it's not only about reading, it's also about sending, right?
Yeah.
There's a give and take at the table.
Dictate your seat as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Mike Popovich asked, what are some sneaky, not obvious interactions? And I got nothing here.
Yeah, I don't think there is anything like not obvious we haven't talked about, or that you can figure out like relatively quickly. Like you can use Miter turn 1 with Dromai to make some ash, or turn 0 to make some ash if you're going second, which is kind of nice. Yeah, that's about like the only. You can like strategic plan. Is it strategic planning that sends a card, tucks a card under, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can do that turn 0 against Phi, which is pretty sick. If you just draw
burn
into
their
it,
flame.
Yeah, put their Phoenix Flame on the bottom of their deck, and so maybe save yourself like 3 damage over the next 3 turns.
That's a really good one, actually. I just hate that card for all the other reasons, but it's pretty cheeky in that scenario.
Yeah. So outside of that, I don't really know.
I mean, Tyler mentioned on our last interview trading in a Phoenix Flame, which is pretty sick. That just hasn't come up for me yet, so.
Oh yeah, yeah, that is
You
pretty
know,
good.
discard it, draw a card.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay, so then next up, Patrick asks, how have the heroes shaped up versus your initial impressions of them? They have shaped up quite nicely, if I don't say so myself. They're totally fun. I guess Dromai is a bit less fun than, or maybe even less powerful than I kind of have initially thought it would be and how it would play out. Um, but I could just probably need some more practice on particularly like drafting that deck. That's the thing sometimes about draft practice is you're practicing like reading signals, sending signals, and sometimes you wind up drafting one hero more times than the other one, you know? But that's what teammates
Yeah,
are for, is you lean on their experiences in that scenario. So
definitely.
what do you got?
The heroes I have found, and especially in their limited matchups, have been a lot more deep than I originally gave them credit for. Like I mentioned, the Iyslander versus Dromai matchup, it's just like this epic slog through your whole deck sometimes. Which, just in my mind, I was like, oh, well, this is Dromai favorite, whatever. The only one just for my personal playstyle, Fi is like a bit disappointing. It's pretty fun to fill up the whole combat chain with cards and kill your opponent, but identifying the lines and the variety in the cards is just like not that complex to me. But it's probably just, it's not really my play style. I very much prefer a little bit more of a interactive hero. So I mean, five's just fine. Just pretty linear.
Nope. Tweet at Isaac. You're freaking that he's a
Yeah.
Phi denier. Tweet at him.
All right. Next question.
Yep. You want me to read it, or I thought we were
Oh, I
taking
got
turns.
Staying open seems really hard in this set. I've seen a few takes on how long you have to make the call, and it's like 4 to 6 picks. What's your metric? From Hades in our Discord.
Totally.
That's right.
Shout
Lord
out
of
to
Underworld.
the true Australian Hayden. How about you answer that first there, Isaac?
Oh, sure. So I completely agree, but for me, a lot of people still view staying open as like in maybe the classic sense, like in Destiny or Magic or like Welcome to Wraith or something, where you just pick like 7 powerful generics and then you try to get a signal or whatever. Whereas since maybe like a bit of Monarch, but mostly Tails and now Uprising, staying open is like not just picking generics.
Right.
So I guess an example would be like, so say I have a red Scar for a Scar, red Blaze Headlong, a red Aether Ice Vein, a blue Arctic Incarceration, and let's say
Yenderai.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Or I was going to mention like a free, Ninja Go Again card or something, right?
Sure.
So these are all, so I have one ice card, I have one generic, and I have one draconic card, right? So in this whole set, I only have one generic, right? The Scar. But if I go Iyslander, I have 3 playables, including Scar for a Scar. If I go Ninja, I have 3 playables as well. Or if that's a dragon, then I have 2 playables and I have 3 in Dromai, right? So I'm like still pretty open with powerful cards in each class, right? Because the draconic does really help you out here, right? But so it doesn't really matter where I go. So if I go Iyslander here, I've wasted 2 picks, right? And I get 42 picks out of 30 playables and 5 cards, right? So 4 equipment. So I maybe burned 2 of my 8 cards I can't use, which sometimes you get wheeled those cards, right? So those are pretty valuable. But anyway, I guess just the point I'm trying to make is it's like, while keeping in mind what signals you're sending, you can't be too all over the place, because then you won't like reap the benefits in pack 2. But you can stay open while I guess fishing for some of the powerful cards from other classes. Because if you just try to go from generics, man, there's like a lot of garbage. You're not going to choose like yellow trade in.
Yeah, blue trade in even,
Yeah,
maybe
it's
the
just
blue
like,
is better. Yeah.
I'm going to take a class card here. But you are correct in that you do have to make the decision fairly fast in this format, because there's less cards per pack, and you still need a 30 card deck.
Yeah. Isaac, you hit the nail on the head. It's basically like you picks 4 through 6. You're just trying to pick some cards that'll help whatever deck you wind up jumping into, right? Because without those, like if you pass up Red Aether Ice Vein, you will then have to face it down and you will be upset. You know what I mean? And it's like a card you really want in Iyslander. It's super, super powerful. So picking that over something, like Yellow Scar for a Scar, or, Yellow Brother in Arms, which is maybe like pretty good because it like can block for 4. Even that I would be like, I would not want Yellow Brothers in Arms versus a key class card, basically.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, in the interest of trying to remain as open as possible.
Yeah. And so in this scenario of 5 cards, right, I've kind of cut off Iyslander and sent that signal, but now we're 5 cards in, I have to make a decision. So if I like hard pivot into like Phi, right, because that's just the strong signals I'm getting, it's like not really too late. And the person downstream of me here is going to like pick up that, oh, maybe I wish-washed a little bit, but there's like no ninja cards. So, whether even if they have to maybe adjust a little bit late, you'll still send that strong signal throughout the rest of pack 1 here. And I don't mean to entirely discount generics like Red Oasis for Spite, Red Scar for a Scar, like Red Brothers in Arms. Like this is where you want to be. Those are just kind of like not very common. So,
yeah. All right. Trying to move a little quicker here. Sleep Strong from our Discord asks, do you like going first or second in limited, and why? Also, what packs do you prioritize picking equipment over power cards? So I think we talked about already why we would go first or second in all of those matchups and why. But what packs do you prioritize equipment over cards? And I say I usually pick equipment pretty early. I mean, there's certain equipments you're looking for, right? Like you're looking for Sash, you're looking for Heat Wave, you're looking for Spellfire Cloak, and Quelling Slippers. I think are the kind of the best, not in that order, but the best pieces of equipment. So if I see those in like pack 1, I'll just probably pick them. You know what I mean? Just because they're like the best equipment, and you definitely want it for sure.
Yeah. And then I won't pick them all, pack 1, pick 1, but if nothing at the pack is like screaming at me, I'll, then take some equipment I don't have yet. And oftentimes I'm really glad that I did. Or like early in pack 2, I don't have a chest for my hero yet. So I'll take that Quelling Robe.
Yeah.
Pack 2, pick 1, or pack 2, pick 2, whatever. Like pack 2, pick 2. I'm going to grab this Quelling Robe. There's nothing like this pack's just okay. I don't have a chest yet. I do need Quell. So yeah, it's not always first priority, but it's, I guess having played and really appreciate Quell makes it a bit easier, but it's just when it seems like the best card in the pack.
Yeah, it's not
very helpful.
It's not like Tales of Aria, right? Where like your deck is not better, or like the margin of how much better your deck is with Runaways versus not having Runaways over like a card in your deck is so minuscule that it like doesn't matter. Whereas I would argue that having a piece of Quell is potentially just as impactful as like kind of your like mid-tier cards. That makes sense?
Yep.
Sweet. Okay, next question.
Are yellows worse than usual in this set? Yes. Not as much in Phi because they kind of hedge against frostbite, but yes, dramatically so.
Totally. Terrible. Yellows suck. Okay, from Yuki Lee Bender, friend of the pod and personal friend of ours. What does a good Dromai deck look like in your experience? What cards do you look for, and how do you beat Phi? I have no clue, but I would guess that like a mid-range Cinnapai deck would be a bit more resilient, which we kind of outlined earlier. What are your thoughts, Isaac?
Yeah. So I'm looking for, I guess, dragons, like Dunebreaker Centipie, Red Rake and Red Go Again. Like you just have to pick up so much Red Go Again, which some of these like feel the same, like Billowing Mirage, right? Great Illusionist card, or Sweeping Plow, but also gives you Red Go Again here. We got into those matchups quite a lot. So
it's just tough. It's like it's the most polarizing matchup, I think, are those two.
I definitely think it's the hardest
compared to the other ones you can get into.
And it's just so hard to build. So if you're the only Dromai at the table or one of two, you can make like a pretty fire deck, right? But if there's too many, it's going to be pretty weak just because the amount of components you need compared to the other decks, right? They only kind of need to do like have 1 or 2 ratios or something. Whereas like Dromai, it's like you need Red Go Again. You need like, Centipies are pretty aggressive cards for some matchups, and you need like Ashwing production for other matchups. So, that's a lot of, and the fact that the matchups change so drastically, I feel like in terms of card performance, means that it kind of has the most moving parts. Drafting Dromai kind of reminds me of drafting Levia. It's just like a lot of moving pieces.
Oh yeah. Yeah, totally.
But anyway, yeah, we went over the matchup. So good luck. Good luck to you.
Final question.
Yep. Oh, which Iyslander Comet would make you A, get in that lane early, or B, convince you to pivot into that lane? From Tommy Fresh on Twitter. What's up, Tommy?
Yeah. The big bud himself. So for me, it's Aether, Ice Vein, Red or Blue Aether Hail. Like I will just pick those just to friggin' hate pick them. They're so good.
Yeah. I'm going to say Red Aether Ice Vein or Blue Aether Hail. I'm not that high on Blue Aether Ice Vein, but really, really good. I guess Spellfire Cloak also.
Oh yeah,
but
Spellfire Cloak.
By picking this one thing, you're not like really pivoting into it unless it's a little later, I guess. So yeah, if you see one of these things like pick 6 or something, you're like, oh yeah, I've already hedged this way a little bit.
Yeah,
and Iyslander's open.
We're going for Ice Switch for sure.
Yeah, nice Ice Switch.
Yeah, it just sounds cooler.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all of our listener questions on this topic.
Thank you for submitting them. Usually we tweet out the day of, so follow us on Twitter to get your questions in there, or become a Patreon member and hang out in our Discord. One of the best online communities is the Attack Action Podcast Discord, so you want to be in there. Welcome to Pick Path Pray, again, sponsored by Fab Foundry.
Forged in the Foundry.
Forged in the Foundry.
Working catch line.
If you need any sort of flesh and blood singles and are looking for high quality packaging and a personal touch to each order you make, then Fab Foundry is the place for you, right? Grassroots, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, made yourself from nothing into a empire. That's what Fab Foundry has done. So we have an affiliate link below that if you need any singles, like if you're looking for those foils, baby, go click through that link at Fab Foundry. But this pick pack spray is sponsored by them. So make sure you go follow them on Twitter. Link in the description below. You'll have a chance to win both Blitz decks and 6 packs of Uprising. All you got to do is like that tweet and comment what your pick pass pray would be. So let's get into it. So pick pass pray is a draft scenario. I'm going to give you 3 cards. Isaac, you're going to choose which one you're going to pick, which one you're going to pass, and which one you pray comes back around. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, first card up is Red Scar for a Scar. Generic attack action, defends for 2, pitches for 1, costs 0, and attacks for 4. It reads, when you play Scar for a Scar, if you have less health than an opposing hero, it gains Go Again. Okay. Second card, Rapid Reflex Blue. Costs 1, pitches for 3, is a ninja attack reaction, defends for 3, and it says target attack action card with 0 gains +1. Okay. Third and final card, we've talked about it a lot, is Blue Aether Hail. It is a wizard, ice wizard action. Defends for 3, pitches for 3, costs 1, and it reads deal 2 arcane damage to any target. So Isaac, which one are you going to pick? Pass and pray. Comes back around.
I'm going to pick Blue Aether Hail because of the signal it sends, the just value of that card. Scar for a Scar is like a really close second here. I've just found that the Go Again, while sometimes you can manufacture it, is still conditional. And like rarely, but sometimes kind of bricks. But I'm going to hope that comes back around somehow.
And passing on Rapid Reflex.
Yeah, Rapid Reflex Blue. I mean, it's nice because it like blocks for 3 and is a blue, but it just like to me doesn't function at all. And like I said, I prefer the blues that like auto Go Again blues to smooth out your hand. All right, what do you got?
Sweet. Well, I think I'm going the same exact way as you, maybe only the second time in our show's history that has happened. But so my point, there is some kind of like interesting interplay with Rapid Reflex that it's one of the few blue block for 3s you can get in Fi and is potentially a cheeky way to win the game at the end, right? You come in for your third attack chain link, you have 1 resource floating, so you get your Phoenix Flame for free and Phoenix Flame them for 1, and then boom, Rapid Reflex for the win, potentially. Has some value in all of those scenarios because it's like something you could pitch and play into, but I do not think that overweighs the Blue Aether Hail. That is just like a money card, and then the like inherent extra power level that Scar for a Scar has kind of gets you there better. So pick Aether Hail, pray for Scar, pass on Rapid Reflex. So remember to go follow on it from Fab Foundry. These cards will be posted there in a specific tweet for this giveaway, and you got to like and comment what your picks and passes and praise will be. So thank you again to Fab Foundry.
Those Blitz decks are going to be sweet.
They totally are. Okay. I think it is time for
Riddle Me This. So this episode's Riddle Me This is Tome of Duplicity. It's a blue wizard majestic, costs 3, pitches for 3, blocks for 2, and it's a wizard action. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, then banish one. If it's a non-attack action card, you may play it this turn as though it were an instant. I do not, so I haven't sat down and like lined this card up with other cards to like really try to figure it out yet. But in Kano or Iyslander, I just don't get it. It's just not cost effective, right? Like you can Kano for the cost of this card. I mean, you can pay for it and play it, but then it burns your action point. And then it's like you know, I don't know, Kano'd twice. It just doesn't seem like the upside does not seem cost effective, right? Like it blocks for 2. It doesn't have go again. It just seems like if you hit it off the top, it's like pretty bad. Anyway, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on this card?
I don't know. It seems like a crazy combo card, right? Like for in some magical Christmas land where you sonic boom this off the top for free, it's like pretty nuts, right? But then you could just sonic boom like a red spell off of the top, and
Right,
that
the
would
card
be
you wanted to hit.
yeah, that would be pretty nuts, right? So I don't know. It is interesting to have a card that potentially digs through your deck more, right? But that doesn't just inherently draw you cards. So I'm not sure. It's interesting, but
it's just weird on your turn. This would cost 2 cards plus whatever resources it costs to pay the card you see, right? So it costs you 3 cards to just do this on your turn. Or if you hit it off the top, it costs you 3 to Kano, costs you 3 to play it, and then costs you to play it again. It's just like not cost effective. Yeah, unless we get into some deep rabbit hole of card combos and it turns out to be good.
I got this in a draft deck just because it was a blue. And I mean, this is like as close to cool as this card probably gets, is that I pitch stacked this card and then was pretty close to then like a red Aether Hail. But I was like, my count was like 1 off. So I hit some like bullshit card instead. But the idea was that I was going to like get a big spell at the end, get a like triple spell, right? Like 1 from Arsenal, or it's Tome from Arsenal. And then that's a way for me to like red spell you on your turn is what I was trying to do, but it did not work out. So that's as cool as it's gotten for me, right? Is that I can try to like do that in draft that way, but that's it.
Yeah, you could like red Aetherize Fane and moon them, you know?
Yeah, for another blue. Exactly. Yeah. See? Yeah, that was the idea.
Or Aether Hail for a blue, yeah.
Totally. But I hit like blue frosting and was like 3 damage short or whatever. So
fair enough.
Something stupid.
All right.
Yeah.
Our last.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Do you have any more input in that?
No, I was going to help segue us to Game from the Closet.
Here at the Attack Action Podcast, we like to play mini games, and sometimes we'd like to share one of those with you, in the hopes that you'll enjoy this game at home. So in this segment, I'm going to choose a video game. I don't want to share too many video games, but this is pretty enjoyable. So my pick this episode is called Little Nightmares 2, which is a side-scrolling like horror puzzle game for Xbox, and I'm sure other platforms. That I don't like horror genre stuff because I'd rather have a fun adventure in my free time than be afraid. But this game is just like, I don't know. It's like freaky. It's fun. The puzzles and the progress are all really enjoyable. And it's like it's like really, really beautiful. And like the graphics and lighting. And it's like super immersive while being pretty casual. I've also played with Mitch before where we just take turns playing because it's pretty entertaining. So yeah, if you're looking for some sort of like I'm not typically a side scroller or casual game guy, but this one's like pretty good. It's pretty good. Go like watch a trailer for it, and you'll probably know if you'll like it or not.
Nice. That's fun. Look at you spreading your wings,
Totally
trying new stuff. Yeah. Wow. That's so fun. Cool. Well, that is our episode. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. If you would like to support us, there are a number of ways you can do that. You can like and subscribe everything we do all of the time. That's super useful. If you want to support us monetarily, best way to do that is to join the Patreon. It's $4 a month, gets you access to the Discord, and anytime we do any sort of cool Discord events or giveaways or anything like that, and you become a part of like a really cool community online. Just the other day, I was talking with one of our members, and they, said that our Discord has a real family feel to it, and maybe one of the best compliments I've gotten. So, and it helps us grow our channel and our brand and that sort of thing. We got a lot of things coming down the pipeline that are going to be pretty big, and everything will always be free. But just if it has value of $4 per month to you, then we would really appreciate that kickback. So
definitely. And if you enjoyed this or any episode, or like learned anything from our pointers, or like disagree, or are we wrong about something, you can comment on YouTube, in the Discord. You can like tweet at us on Twitter. Just let us know.
Yeah,
me
tell
and
a
Taylor
friend.
just staring at each other again doesn't give us much input. So yeah, we really appreciate hearing whatever input you got.
Yeah, and keep a few of you have taken up the mantle of reviewing the podcast on iTunes, which would be great. Keep that up. And on Spotify, giving us some number of stars, that would be great as well. And make sure you tell a friend, right? It's a great way to grow our community, is just tell your buds, promote us. It feels awkward, but they're a nerd too. So they're also feeling awkward because you're talking to them. Okay, let's get out of here, huh? We'll see you next episode. Goodbye, everybody.
Yep. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at the Attack Action Podcast. On Twitter, we are at BattleBro Taylor and at BattleBro Isaac. Shoot us an email, theattackactionpodcast@gmail.com.
If you would like to support us, like and subscribe, shop for singles using our affiliate link, or support our Patreon for as little as $4 per month.